Hey there. Later this year, I'm hosting a painting class on folks who have board games that aren't miniature painters that want to get some of their figures painted to make gameplay easier and to make the board look a little bit more impressive. And we're going to do some experimenting today to help develop that class. So here I have one of the cards. This is from Thunder Road Vendetta. There was a version, like a premium version, that had them like oil wash kind of look, recess shaded, but these are just the blank plastic. Here's the contents of the core set. Rather than doing traditional opaque primer like black or gray spray paint, I'm going to use a clear matte varnish instead. What that's going to do, it's still going to give us some grip for our paint to stick on, but it's going to keep the game playable. So if at any point in time we don't finish this project before we want to play it next, we're not covering up the base colors that are in here, so it's going to be pretty obvious which team is which. If we just sprayed all of these guys gray and then we're going to manually paint them up, we might have more artistic control and a finer, result. But here I'm worried more about, this is a toy, let's keep it a toy for as much of the time as we can in case we don't get the chance to finish the full-on painting. These are some of the clear coats I've been using recently. This is what I use through the airbrush. This is what I've been using most commonly. I don't know where to buy this. It was left at our house when we moved in, but it's pretty great. The spray on it is pretty consistent. It leaves a slightly pebbled surface, so things really. So first, we're going to look at the bare minimum, right? This is how they come out of the container, plus the matte varnish. The minimum you can do to make this a little bit more interesting is to apply a wash. There's tons of different kinds of washes, both oil and acrylic. There's even enamel type stuff. But for today, we're just going to use a pre-mixed one. This is from Pro Acryl. This is what my local store has. This is a semi-transparent paint, and it's going to gather more in the recesses. So all it's going to really do is it's going to give us some individual panel identification on this guy. He's still going to be mostly white. It's not really going to do anything to the black surfaces, but let's give it a shake. Put some out here on our palette. With the brush. And just apply a coat of this all over. I'm not going to let it gather too heavily, but to start, I'm going to just kind of slap it on there, and then we'll tidy up in a minute. But you can see, even at its full potency, this isn't getting rid of the general white undercoat, right? This isn't a brown paint. It just has similar pigments, but at different, ratios. You could also make a wash of your own by adding water or acrylic medium into an existing paint that you have. Just be careful that you test it on something, as the more you change the chemistry of a paint, the more it can misbehave. Not every paint is going to, dilute in the same way and give you the result you want. Cool. So that's what a wash does for you. And we'll compare that here to the unwashed version. Right, so we're going to let this dry. If you do have any areas where you find the staining is too strong, keep in mind that, these guys are getting lit from above, so like this shadow probably isn't that dark. Just dry off your brush a little bit on your paper towel, and you can soak a little bit of that up. Same thing, so I'll just go around on any of like the upward facing surfaces and make sure that the staining isn't too strong. So here's our example of what just the brown wash over the clear matte varnish is going to do for you. Right? It definitely brings out the details a lot, but for my personal taste, this is sort of the minimum, right? For the sake of the videos, I am not going to do too much to this, but I am going to take either a silver Sharpie or one of the other methods you'll see later in the video and highlight some of the elements in silver. So probably just the weapons down here, the rotor blade, and then I'll apply the same wash over those, But having those two tones identified is going to make this something that I'm happier to put on the table. Same with these guys down here. I'm going to do some silver trim and then apply that same wash over it. For our second team, we're going to be using these really sort of affordable metallic markers. I think these were $4 or $5 at Five Below here in the States. Something like this has a pretty low ceiling, right? You're not going to be able to get an incredible quality out of these, but they make up for that inconvenience, right? You only if you're going to paint with markers like this or the more miniatures branded ones made by AK Interactive and the Army Painter, you don't need the other supplies, right? You don't need water cups and palettes. If you only care about the quality that something like this can give you, you can paint a whole board game on your couch with something like this. It's not to be, scoffed at so lightly. What I do like about this particular set is that it has that brush style tip. I'm going to take the darker of my two blue metals, and I'm going to paint it into all of the super deep recesses, as well as sort of like the lower trim on everything. My thought process there is that it's going to give us a bit of a shadow tone later. We'll cover up most of it, but we'll just sort of outline where the blue meets the silver later. We don't have to be super neat at this point because we're gonna again paint over almost all of this. I don't want to try and get too much on the tires if I can avoid it, just because we can let the black of the tires kind of show through. Why waste a step? But I'm gonna take it off the handle here because it's a bit too wobbly. The underside of these is really irregularly shaped, so they don't have much to grab onto. And we're just going all the way around our model here. Wipe some stuff off with our thumb as we go if it spills on the tires. See if we can take this up all the way around the plank. Very cool. And now same thing, I'm going to do the underside of the windows. Anything up here. This isn't accurate, right? We're not trying to correctly capture how light would interact with this model. This is just for visual style. You don't have to do this if you don't want. I think it just adds a little bit of extra interest to our final result with the second pen. And it really doesn't take all that much time. So on this one, I'm experimenting a little bit more with just outlining some components. And same thing as we get further into the process. Sorry, that's the cat. If we decide, we don't like this, the next layer will kind of cover it up. So maybe something kind of like this to start. Nothing to write home about just yet. But we're going to close that up. Move on to our brighter silver and basically hit everything that's still the original blue. As well as cut back on that darker blue. And sort of taper it back down into the recess a bit. The orange team, we're going to do some sponging. This is a great way to get a sort of grimy, weathered look. Some folks will do it just as a finishing step over a normal paint job to apply rust and sort of degradation of the paint. But here we're going to do one sort of from the base and just use the sponge as much as we can to really get some interesting texture. Here I've picked a couple of different orange and red tones. So I'm going to start by doing this more desaturated grindhouse orange. Not really a full base coat, but the goal is to kind of cram it into all of the recesses. And then we'll use our two lighter oranges and reds to really build some interesting color and texture over the top. So to do that, this is very much, as the name implies, this is just stamping basically with a sponge. We're going to take some paint on our palette, dab it a bit, and then just work it over the model. This is a fairly imprecise way to apply paint, so you are going to get paint over those areas that would be black or silver. We're just going to have to clean those up later, but this is going to give us a really cool visual finish on the body of the car, so it'll be worth it. So yeah, I'm just going to work my way all the way around this figure and the others as well, and we'll go one stage at a time. So here's that first overall base coat down. I'm going to go to the next color up. I'm using the same sponge. I'm not even cleaning it out. All right, we're going to cover this area and just a little bit more chaotically. But you can see right away, by jumping to such a bright color, it really kind of highlights the texture of the sponge, which is just going to give us this very sort of beat down and grimy vehicle when we're done. So yeah, it'd be something like that. And then I'll go one more time back with this Archon Orange afterwards. And here's what that sponge technique is going to look like as it's done. Just like with every team, I'm going to bring the black of the wheels back and do some silver trim. I may sponge the trim on where I can over black or over a dark brown to give it, again, keep the speckled appearance in line. It also kind of gives it this worn, kind of weathered look. But for now, I really love the color variation. There's a sort of a subtle highlight as we worked our way up through the brighter colors. And it just makes this like a very lively and sort of battle-torn vehicle. It also kind of helps sell the scale of these, whereas compared to the wash or the silver markers, which are very reflective, this feels like it's grounded in the lighting of the world a bit better. We've done sponging, we've done the markers. It's time for no more gimmicks and some regular painting. For the green team, I've already gone ahead and put a base coat of a slightly brighter green down on these guys already. As you can see, I wasn't too precious about it. There's some messy overspill, not a big deal. We're going to continue on with a slightly messy technique, and we're moving to dry brushing. So the first paint I used was just a standard green. This next one, I have this bright green from Pro Acryl. I'm going to give that a go. And for my dry brush here, I'm going to just take a little drop of water, work that into the tip there. Go into our paint. This is a bright green, but it's also it can be a little pale. So we should see some immediate contrast right on these. For our next step, I'm going to be adding a little bit of ice yellow to this bright green. This is an older ice yellow, so it's a bit thick and chunky, but $3.29. That's pretty good. I think most hobby paints these days run me like $5.50. Anyway, I'm gonna just let those get to know each other. Just trying to brighten it even further and desaturate it a bit. Take our paper towel, scrub a good bunch of that off. And now we're going to focus on just sort of the top half of the vehicle. It looks like I have too much in my brush still. And same thing, we're going to just those downward strokes to catch all the hard edges that the light would be sort of accumulating on. And it's just, again, it's giving us a little bit of a texture, a little bit of a highlight. Nothing in this video, regardless of the technique, is designed for mastery or realism. This is just a collection of simple ways for you to make your models a little bit more interesting without spending a ton of time on it. Excellent. And now, because I'm feeling fancy, I'm going to do one more pass of just ice yellow, I'm not going to clean out my brush, so it's still going to have a bit of a green tint to it. But we'll go nice and light with this one. There we go. Back to this guy, same thing, just on this topmost raised surface. For the metal on these, I'm going to be using the same colors that I sponged on to the orange team. So we're going to be starting with sort of a dark silver as a base coat over all the metal, and then we'll come in with a silver or a steel to add in some highlights. Just take a bit off on our palette up here. And I'm going to paint the same areas I did on those other teams to keep things consistent. So I'm going to do this same dark silver across the 4 remaining green team vehicles up here, and then we'll also do the bright silver up to our brighter silver color. And I'm going to use this sparingly, pretty much just on the upward facing surfaces, and maybe not even all of them. Reflections in general are pretty dependent on the shape of the thing that they're reflecting off of, but we're just going for style. We're not going for realism. It's okay to kind of set expectations from yourself that differ from realism, especially if you're not trying to put in a ton of effort. So on areas like this that are really flat, I'm also just doing like a little bit of a line across the top there, just to help reinforce the contrast a bit. Once we have the black wheel on, it'll help a lot as well. I don't know how much of this one has been in camera. I apologize if I've wandered on this particular shot. The little phone mount that I'm using kind of slid out of position. There we have it. We're going to do the rest for the other 3. And here is our sort of parade of the 4 teams. So this is our wash only team with that brown acrylic wash. And of course the rec marker got some silver just to give it something, as it was a pure black piece of plastic. Next up we have our silver acrylic marker team. I'm really quite fond of these. Normally I don't leave anything this reflective. I would put a matte varnish on them to kind of even them out. But they kind of have like a Hot Wheels quality to them, which is cool. I think this is my favorite of the 4. I'm a big fan of sponging on small scale stuff like this. I like the texture, I like the contrast that it gives. What do you think? Let me know. And finally, the green team. Thanks for checking out this video today. I don't really have a stake financially in this. I just want to help people get their toys painted. So if you do any of these steps, or if you try a technique of your own, be sure to let me know. Thanks. Go paint your games.